Okay, so with as few caveats and warnings and discounts as possible, here's the structure. These orange lines represent your property lines. The upshot of this is that the structure has grown large enough that we're well into the forest here. And I think that, I don't know if this is a depression here, but this is the driveway from the golf carts below. If something like that stays, I can easily see, obviously, the entire structure needs to move southeast. I could see it sliding down, where if that is a depression, that would make that driveway not, a lot better, easy, not so tall and long. Also, if these trees are going to stay, I don't know if those are the two big ones we talked about staying, but you can see if this shifts down here, it lends itself to your entrance coming up through here. A little closer view for you to freeze the screen and get a better look. Here's an overlay, another similar situation with that overlook. Okay, because I refuse to turn anything loose without the required discounts about the things I see wrong. With this particular plan, if we stay with this floor plan, the way it's arranged, the way it's working for you, with this east bit here and this down here, this piece is too small in relation to this one is too large, because we want this piece to have the power. With this coming forward and this going back, that aggravates that problem. So the idea being, as we go forward, perhaps this whole central piece is lifted some. This needs to be made more prominent, and this one needs to be downplayed. And that's all really to say on that. Continuing with a few warnings and discounts in terms of things at the rear. If you take a quick look at this photo, which we'll call the Clark photo, which I promise I located after my structure was done, keep in mind this arch, this covered portion here, possibly this tower, the chimneys, that sort of thing. These are elements of this sort of architecture. This is a long, low slope roof. This is the sitting room at the second floor level underneath. Even if whether that stays or not, this is a little balcony around that sitting room. It's easy for me to imagine that sitting room actually extending all the way out to here, with maybe enclosed balconies, or that becomes just like a big outdoor room at the second floor level. Possibly there's even a little fireplace in there. I don't know. But I could see that instead of this long, low slope roof, this actually becomes a tower piece that comes up, several enough feet high enough that it's got much taller windows than what you'll see in the photographs. At this end, these can be gables here if we wanted. If this piece even stays at this angular orientation, it very well may. I think this roof plane can easily just come straight across and keep this nice and simple. You can't see it from here. I had tilted that so that the occupant of this room at least has one clear shot out here without looking across the roof. Maybe everything here changes. It's all open to interpretation. This piece does not have to stay here. At one time I had a tower coming up with actually a little spiral staircase that was like a little super retreat room, that you could actually see far because it rose up to a third level with that tower. You can see the issues I talked about. And this southwest shot emphasizes those issues with the power and width of this versus the diminutive nature of this. And we want to maintain this as the central piece, as the piece with power. You can see if this roof is lifted, how that begins to stand on its own then. These brackets may or may not be there. There's nothing like that happening over here, so one way or another, this side needs to be joined with this visually and spiritually. Here's a shadow view. And from the southeast, and this is the rear of the structure. A couple quick notes here. First floor outdoor room. And some of this ground is covered in the longer video that I gave you a link to. This outdoor room can come all the way out here to this face of this loggia. I could see this being, even if this little room stays very small like it is, I could see these being a much more open railing with maybe there's iron railings, or maybe there's openings cut through this stucco and there's iron railings in there to keep that much more open. The billiards room, I seriously don't think you want a deep loggia underneath. Oh, in front of those windows, I feel like if I did this again or in the future, I would pull this portion of it back so that all the billiards room windows are without covering in front of them. This is the sitting room. You could easily have dormers up here, possibly with tall arch-top windows. Those dormers could proceed out this way some more than what they are. This wall is not aligned with the billiards wall below, so it can come out some with little dormers, which would give you a better view down here. It all depends on how much grace you want up in that room. This was my best shot on this window here. The first floor level of the great room is pulled north. This remains where it was. And when I first did this, my initial thought was I should probably just pull the entire thing forward, but that was an awful lot of volume in there, and with the top level pulled back, it still helps the symmetry of the fireplace that fronts into the billiards room. I could see that arch at the Clark photo that I showed you a few shots ago. I could see this being a two-story structure because this is deep and dark here, and I don't really like that being so deep and dark. But this is your dinette and so forth. Beyond that, this is the dining room. You can't really see its arches here. Again, same open interpretation at the railing here, or at the wall of the patio above there, or the balcony, or whatever you want to call it above. But this could rise up a two-story structure where the second story still stays its reduced area. So then from that second story, the covering comes all the way up with this big, huge arch, which will let more light down into this lanai. Still give you the same lanai covering area, but let more light down into it. And then when a person was up here, they would actually be looking over this railing or wall down into portions of the covered lanai. Excuse me. Again, this is kind of utilitarian. These can be gables. Any number of these can be enhanced, seriously enhanced. We won't. This is experimentation type things through here. Okay, and finally, all warnings and discounts having been duly recorded and presented, here's some video clips of the structure from outside. Important to note, particularly at the rear only, is that in these, the land was not built up over by the pool house, so you see a big gap of land. I subsequently, during this, built that up, and I think that one rear photo further up in here where I first show the rear, I think that's current then. And next is summer solstice at sunset. And finally, summer solstice at sunrise.